So we're standing there at my high school reunion. Now, I'm not going to tell you which year we were celebrating, but trust me, it was a big one. It was me and my best friend from high school, and we're standing back and we're kind of scoping out the room. We're basically seeing if the mean girls had aged about 10 years faster than us. We're seeing which of the guys still had hair. Basically what you do at a high school reunion when all of a sudden she gets this look in her face. And hold up, because I know that look. I kind of follow her gaze out, and sure enough, it is him. Her absolute love of her high school life. And I could tell by the look on his face, and really hers too, they were right back there all over again. Now, eventually they got to talking, and I decided I would stalk them from behind the margarita machine. So I was basically watching as their faces went from polite to intense to back to polite again. They wrapped up their conversation, and they were both smiling, and of course, she slowly made her way back to me. And I had to ask, how did it go? It was fine, she said. But the look on her face did not say fine. And don't you worry, one more margarita, and she got to talking. So here's the thing. Back in the day, she and her high school boyfriend decided to break up before they went to college. And that night, after all these years, each one admitted to the other they regretted that decision. But here's the thing. And all that time, they never picked up the phone. They never made the call. They never even talked, really, until that night, 20 years later. Now, don't you worry. Nowadays, they are still happily married, although to other people, but I still remember the look on their faces. Because they didn't have the conversation that mattered, they would always have to wonder what could have been. I'm curious, have you ever hit snooze on a really important conversation? Because I know I have. You know, we like to stay all warm and cozy underneath that cover of what feels safe. We hear the alarms going off and we know we need to get up, or in this case, speak up, and we just don't. If you have this happen to you ever, don't worry, you're not alone, because 3 or 4 people actually regret the conversations they never had with loved ones. And I gotta tell you, I know exactly how my high school friend felt because I have a big old fat what if of my own. A while back, I was working for a major retailer here in the Dallas area. And I was climbing the corporate ladder, as they say. So that meant I would come in early, I would stay late, they'd work hard, I'd work harder. Because I wanted to be the favorite one of the team. The one my boss went to every single time there was a really big project that needed to be done well. And I was. And I was pretty proud of it. Side note here, I've actually had this whole goal since the 1st grade. I always wanted to be my teacher's favorite too. I was the one she always put in charge when she went to the bathroom. Because some things never change. Anyway, working hard, cranking out those results, it always worked really well for me. And I was the only one on my team actually getting promoted every 12 to 18 months. And it felt so good to actually be recognized for a job well done, right? But then came the big one, the promotion of promotions, the opportunity to actually lead my own team. And y'all, let's face it, I had this in the bag. I went out and bought all new decor for my bigger and better cubicle. I picked out the perfect outfit and yes, the perfect shoe to wear on the day they'd announce my promotion. And guess what? Yeah, I didn't get it. Found out later that I wasn't even close. And the one who did get it, let's be clear, I was much more qualified than she was. And I know I worked harder. I remember so many times I'd be sitting in my office, working, and she'd be out bouncing around cubicle to cubicle, going out to lunch, celebrating another birthday. She'd be out making the rounds while I was head down getting the real work done. And I gotta tell you, I was crushed. Because how was the go-to on the team not the go-to for the promotion? I decided to get the nerve up to ask my boss that exact question, and I still remember what he said because it stung a lot. He said, "Courtney, you are absolutely more qualified, maybe even 10 times more so. But when you get to this level, it's not just about your hard skills, it's about relationships, because relationships lead to influence." She prioritizes relationships, and you don't. Hold up, what? I'm sorry, I've been cranking out the work this whole time, and that's what he actually valued more? Yeah, it was that day I learned a very critical lesson, a lesson that applies to business and life. Success is all about one thing: the relationships you cultivate along the way. I was absolutely doing the work that was required. She was having the conversations that mattered. And you know what? In 20 plus years in the corporate environment, I can tell you there was one thing I've learned. When it comes down to culture, bad culture, good culture, morale, good and bad morale, right? When it comes down to things that really matter, it comes down to really one thing. We don't prioritize conversation enough. We don't communicate enough. We don't connect enough. We prioritize results when we need to prioritize relationships. I know what many of you are thinking, because I thought it too. But wait, Courtney, I'm actually an introvert. It actually says so on my personality profile. I don't do that social thing because, I just don't. I have an excuse. I know, me too, technically. Let me clarify. It's not about being social. It's about being strategic. All those conversations you have with your boss, your peers, your team, your customers, that leads to a relationship, which leads to influence, which leads to greater impact. And I promise you, that is so much more important than that 10-page to-do list you are so worried about. It can even make us happier at work. Studies show that 77% of people will say that developing close relationships with their colleagues at work is actually the number one factor in determining job satisfaction. We think it's all about the money, I know, but salary is actually 8th on the list. So what do we do about it, right? We know we should have these conversations, and yet we don't. So what do we do to get to the other side? We have the snooze button right here in the middle. How do we go from one side to the other? Well, for me, what works is asking myself 3 questions. And that is exactly what I'm going to share with you today. Those questions are, what's holding me back? What's it costing me? And what's my reason? Let's start with the first one, what's holding me back? So, a lot of people in the business world especially put off having important conversations, especially the awkward ones, right? And from what I've seen, it's all about the what ifs. What if I walk up to this person and start talking to them and they find out how socially awkward I really am? What if I say something and I hurt their feelings unintentionally and they start to cry? What if this conversation actually makes things worse instead of better and our relationship is ruined forever? I know, me too. But here's the thing. A lot of times those what ifs are not so much about protecting their feelings, it's about protecting our own. When you think about it, your what ifs are probably a lot more about you than them. Another thing we do is we focus on the doom and gloom, right? All the negative that can come out of it. When really there could be so many other things that are positive on the other side of that snooze button. But we seem to forget all about those. Another big what if that gets really in the way is, what if I'm not prepared enough? How many of you have probably thought to yourself, I'm just gonna sleep on it one more night? Yeah. Here's the truth of the matter, because I have worked with a lot of people on this. You are never going to feel 100% ready to have a tough conversation. It is never going to happen. All the practicing, preparing, even praying is not going to give you that feeling of confidence that you're truly looking for. And the bad news is, the more we put it off, sometimes those opportunities actually pass us by. So don't put off having that conversation when you think you're not ready. It's not worth it. So, first question, what's holding me back? And is it more about them, or is it really more about me? Next question, what's it costing me? I'm curious, any of you have maybe gotten up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, couldn't go back to sleep because you were focused on something really big the next day? Yep. Anyone wake up and have their stomach in so many knots that you are physically ill and you have to call out to sick to work or school because you feel bad, you're truly sick? Yeah, me too. And here's the thing, all that avoiding, procrastinating, hitting snooze, that causes additional stress. And all that stress is one of the number one indicators of illness. It's what causes illness. So we feel it physically, but we also feel it financially. In 2016, Crucial Learning found that for every conversation failure at work, it can cost an organization $7,500 in 7 days. And y'all, that was back in 2016. Think about what it is now with inflation. You should laugh there. So yeah, think about that. What is it really costing you? And is it worth it to you? Because I promise you, all the time, the money, and quite frankly, the Pepto-Bismol you are wasting is not worth it. Final question, what's my reason? Here's the good news. When you identify the real reason you want to have a conversation, oftentimes you're identifying too the way you should start the conversation. Let me give you an example. A while back, I had an employee on my team who was basically bad-mouthing me behind my back. And not only me, she was actually bad-mouthing a big project that we were tasked with. And you know, I knew I probably needed to say something, but quite frankly, she was older than me. She had been with the company a lot longer than I had, and everyone loved her. So I figured, okay, we're gonna just let this lie for a second. We're gonna just hope it gets better on its own. Because that always works, right? Yeah, sure. Didn't work here either. It made things 1,000 times worse. To the point where I was actually losing my cool and kind of snapping at her occasionally. I was muttering some not so nice things about her under my breath. And at its worst, quite frankly, I was avoiding her at work, which is not a good look when you are the leader of a team. So after a lot of sleepless nights and some wake-up calls from my good friend Anxiety, I decided I really had to have this conversation. I had to quit hitting snooze. So I took a day or two to self-reflect. And I asked myself, what is my real reason here? Why do I really want to have this conversation? And I gotta tell you, at the surface level, anger. I mean, I was ticked off. How dare she? Who talks about their boss behind their back? Can we act like adults here? I know the irony, I get that now. It's kind of ironic. But when I dug a little deeper, right? I dug a little deeper and I asked myself, really, why do you not want to have this conversation? I realized it was fear. I was scared. Again, she was more tenured, she had more experience, people loved her, and quite frankly, she was very talented. She was very skilled. I needed her on this team to get this major project done. And I was scared that having the conversation might make her actually walk out and quit. Another thing I was scared about was my goal as a leader, a relatively new leader, was to have a team that was collaborative and got things done, but actually liked people as they were doing them with them, had fun, right? I knew that goal could never be accomplished if I didn't have her support. So under the surface, yeah, I was scared, but I valued her. I wanted her on my team. I wanted her support so we could all be successful. And that is exactly what I told her to kick off the conversation. The good news is that conversation went really well, and we are still friends today. So think about it. What is your real reason? And go a little bit deeper, because often you will find out your real reason is very positive, and it's a great way to lead off into that conversation. Now, are these 3 questions going to be the end-all, be-all to have a conversation, especially the hard ones? Absolutely not, right? There's more to it than that. But what I've found is that these 3 questions will help you get from one side of the snooze button to the other. They're going to help you move from should do to did do. And that's what we're getting at today. I gotta tell you, in closing, I'm gonna keep it real with you. There's no easy way to have a difficult conversation. And sometimes it seems like the more important the conversation, the more difficult it is to actually have. And I guess that's just how life works. We're also scared of where this conversation is going to take us, that we actually forfeit all the good stuff that could come out of it on the other side. Full disclosure, I almost hit snooze on this very TEDx talk 5 weeks ago. I remember getting the email saying that I was selected to do it and going, 5 weeks? I'm sorry, most people take 5 months or more to prep for a TEDx talk. There is no way. What if I'm not ready? What if my idea is actually not worth sharing? What if I bomb the speech completely and it lives on the internet forever? Yeah. But then I took a step back, took a deep breath, and I realized Those what ifs are really more about me. So I decided to look at it differently. What if I shared an idea today that changed the way you look at conversations forever, therefore having at least a small impact on your life? What if I give you a tool today, 3 questions, that if you choose to use them, they could actually help give you the courage to have that conversation you know you need to have? Would all that amazingness on the other side of the snooze button actually be worth the small amount of fear? Okay, the big amount of fear I am feeling right now? Absolutely. And that is my real reason. All of you are my real reason. Because just like back at that high school reunion, I realized life gives us a series of moments. Moments where you can either choose to speak up or stay silent. Now, how you choose to manage those moments are completely up to you. Just know that really, you never ever get them back. So what is next for you? What conversation is waiting for you? Because it's time to speak up and quit hitting snooze. Thank you so much.